Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the AmandaFest podcast, where our mission is simple. It's to inspire and empower you to take aligned action towards your dream life, whatever that looks like for you. I am very excited to introduce my friend Dana Foster today. Dana is a fitness coach and a harm reduction advocate, helping women in the EDM and rave community build strong, resilient bodies without sacrificing the lifestyle that they love. She is the founder of Brave Lifestyle, a coaching movement blending strength and stamina building training, holistic health, and festival culture. Dana empowers ravers to prioritize strength, longevity, and self-respect through sustainable, healthy lifestyles. Her mission is to make health plur AF and to prove that you could dance all night and take care of your body in the process. Before we dive into this very juicy conversation, as we've done with every episode, we're going to take a moment to ground. We're going to drop into our bodies. We're going to arrive into the here and now. We're going to recenter and come into the present moment. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if it's safe to do so, I invite you to close down your eyes. Put a hand on your heart and one on your belly and just start breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just tuning into your internal world, noticing what's alive for you, noticing what thoughts are racing through your head. Where are you holding tension? Where are you clenching in your body? Just breathing into your body. And with each inhale, I want you to start to think about an intention for today, for this next 45 minutes to an hour together, in through the nose with your intention. And out through your mouth, releasing anything that is no longer in alignment with that intention. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. One last time, in through the nose. Feel free to shake it out. Ooh, make some noise. Do what you got to do to let it go. Arrive in the here and now. Hey, Dana, how's it going?
It's going pretty good after the technical difficulties.
You guys, this morning we had technical difficulty after technical difficulty. First it was the audio, then it was the video, then it was the sound. And the lesson in that is surrender to the universe. There's nothing you can do. There's no point in getting mad. Just solve it. Fix the problem, figure it out, and keep going.
And patience, lots of
Yeah,
patience.
I think we both handled that very well. When it comes to stressful situations, for me, I'm a problem solver. Getting mad is going to waste time. So let's just figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, 100%.
So good. Well, thank you so much for saying yes. Thank you so much for coming on today. I always like to give a little bit of context of our connection before diving into the conversation, but I've been following you for, I want to say, maybe the last year. I'm really involved in the festival and wellness space, and it's a big community, but it's a pretty small community, I've come to realize. And I started seeing your content, and I just love what you stand for. I saw one reel that was the one that I was like, oh, I definitely have to follow this girl, where you're talking about how people brag about surviving a whole festival weekend off of one chicken tender.
Yeah.
And you're such a big advocate on healthy living, especially for ravers. And that's such a niche job and world. I'd love to hear your story of how you got involved in the health and wellness space and how you were able to tie that with your passion and what that looks like for you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the reasons why I am very much against some of the narratives that, we joke about on social media or see joked about on social media, because most people are actually joking about, like, oh, I can survive off one chicken tender. They're joking, but a lot of us, especially women, can internalize a lot of these messages. And that brings me back to when I first started getting into fitness. I did not get into fitness for a healthy reason. I gave into a lot of toxic mindsets when it came to fitness and weight loss. It started when I was 13 years old and I was very overweight. I had a lot of binge eating, and that was because I was lonely all the time. And so there was a point where I was bullied really bad. And so I went the other direction and started wanting to be like, oh, I want to be in shape. So I started restricting, and then I started doing a ton of cardio. And I did that for years and years. And it wasn't until I started raving that I started to shift away from that toxic mindset. It still followed me for a few years, but it really opened my eyes to how we can feel comfortable in our bodies, no matter what our shape or size, still be able to express ourselves, and having that social connection too with people that I felt that I was able to relate to more. Because growing up, I always loved dancing to music in my bedroom and listening to music at the gym. And it just got me through so many hard times that being able to connect with people on the dance floor helped me shift away from a lot of that mindset that I used to have of being the skinniest version possible to like, I wanted to be the strongest and healthiest version of myself possible. So then I started weight training about a year after, because I initially wanted to build like the rave booty, you know. In those first few years, there was definitely still a lot of that narrative that followed me. And I would see those jokes on social media like, oh, I could survive off one chicken tender and lose 10 pounds over the weekend. And even though I had a much more accepting view of my body, it still followed me. So after I graduated college, I knew that I wanted to pursue health and fitness more. I could have gone the nursing route, but I did not like the sight of blood. I considered the physical therapy route, but I was like, I don't want to just work with people who are injured that want to get the heck out of there. I wanted
Right.
to help each other feel strong and capable. And this was about, oh my gosh, like 8 years ago or something.
Wow.
So in those 2 years, definitely have learned a lot and overcome a lot of my own barriers. And, it kind of brings me to where I am today. A few years ago, I, had hit a wall with my habits when it came to raving and fitness. When festivals came back after COVID, remember
Yeah.
how they just like got slammed in the fall? I was going to back festivals for like a few months. I was working some of them, but I was attending a lot. And the ones I attended, I was going ham on the alcohol and the substances. And at the same time, I was working with a coach myself who I was wanting to get into the bodybuilding world. And she had me on a cut not too long after a bodybuilding show at the same time, doing a ton of cardio. And I was somebody who was always following through. Like, even if I had a festival, I would hit my workouts, I would hit my cardio, hit my macros, and my hormones fucking tanked. I had the worst imbalances. I had cyclical insomnia every time that my period was coming.
What does that mean?
Cyclical insomnia happens on a monthly basis. So every
Mm,
month I would get like a week of insomnia, and I didn't tie it to my hormones at first because I was on birth control. I had the IUD, and in my mind I was like, well, I'm on birth control, so my hormones aren't going to be a problem.
right.
But especially when you're on the IUD, if you are heavily restricting, overdoing the stimulants, stressing the body out, that can really tank your progesterone levels. If you're restricting heavily, you could dip your estrogen. And then if you are on the pill, alcohol can be one of the worst things you can have in excess when you're on the birth control pill. That was one of the things that made me realize, like, wow, there's a lot of things about raving that can affect us, not just the day after where we're like tired,
Right.
dancing for hours, but it can affect you physically and mentally for weeks. And that's why I like focus on working with women, especially because sometimes these things come into play and it can impact their mental health, it can impact their physical health. And, I just want everyone to be here for a good time and a long time and feel
Yeah.
confident and strong along the way.
Totally. I absolutely love that. Love that. Yeah, my whole mission is all about sustainable partying. Exactly what you just said. How do we be here for a good time and a long time? But what are the ways in which to do that? And I think you just touched on so many important things. And I mean, I'm in this space and I don't see a lot of women that are speaking out about the things that, like, this is so women specific, right? When it comes to the hormones that we're taking, when it comes to how different substances are affecting our bodies, I feel like these are all conversations that aren't had growing up. What we were exposed to on the media before social media, right? It was skinny is best. There was no conversations about strength. There's no conversations about being healthy. It was just about looking a particular way. And so I think that the work that you're doing beyond your clients, even your social media, it's so needed in this space. So did you start in health and wellness first, or did you always know that you were going to merge it with your love for raves and festivals? Where did that kind of cross section come into play?
So I always wanted to. When I first got certified after I left college, I studied biology and chemistry in school. So getting my certification wasn't too difficult. A lot of it was stuff that I already learned. Within the first 6 months, I was like, I wanted to start a boot camp for ravers. I was working at LA
So
Fitness
cool.
and small gyms. And when I first got certified, I wanted to do a rave boot camp. And I knew nothing of marketing. I didn't know how to get people to come. And so I had this set up in a private gym that would rent out to independent trainers. And I had this room set up, and of course, nobody came. So I kind of shelved that idea for a while, continued working at LA Fitness, went to work for another small gym. And then I tried to do online coaching because I saw my new boss would use something called Trainerize for their clients. I was like, what if I start training ravers online? And
Right.
so I had 4 people that I worked with, and it went well for a month, and then things kind of fizzled out. And so in my mind, I was like, well, clearly this isn't working. So I think that, maybe I told myself, it's like, well, the rave community doesn't want this. Nobody wants this. So I'm just gonna, let that go for a while. And that was about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Yeah, 6 years ago. So it was 2019 that I tried online coaching for the first time. And so then I went back to just focusing on in person. And then 2020 hit. Of course, we all know what happens that year.
Right. Right.
And the gym that I worked for, my boss was amazing. He was like my first mentor. And he started to bring his clients to do online training. And so he had me start doing online training. And the other gym that I worked for, they gave me an ultimatum. They're like, you can either keep working for him or work just for us. And I'm like, you're telling me during a pandemic that I can only have one stream of income? Okay, fine. Bye, guys. I also, I honestly, I was glad to leave them. Morally, I didn't like working for them. They were one of those boot camp gyms that does like circuit hit style, and they would push people to lift weights that they were not biomechanically ready for, and people would get injured. Anyway, so got some experience there and started to continue on with online coaching when I moved up to Washington away. And I did a lot of in person. And yeah, I did that for about 2 or 3 years. It wasn't until 2023 in the fall that I decided to go back to working with the rave community, because at Base Canyon, I had a few girls that participated in one of my challenges. I decided to just do a challenge for ravers because I was like, fuck it. I just want to do it for fun.
Right. Right.
And then a few girls came up to me who participated in my challenge, and they're like, your challenge helped me. I was able to lose a little bit of weight. I kept it off. You really shifted the way that I look at nutrition and fitness. And I took that as a sign, because at Base Canyon that year, I felt like I was stepping into this new version of myself coming up too. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go all in. And so fall of that year, I basically burnt my business down. I let go of a lot of clients. Well, I chose not to re-sign like 3/4 of the clients that I had at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to focus just on ravers. I was like, I know that these are the type of people that I can relate with, I can connect with. And when they're struggling, I know that I will be able to help pull them out of it and be able to motivate them better, because I was working with Gen Pop, I was working with mill spouses, and I was just like, no hate to mill spouses. In fact, my best friend and best client, she's a military spouse too, but I wanted to rip my hair out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
I don't see myself doing this for many years to come. And I knew raving is the one thing I know is going to be like constant in my life. Like, I'm going to be a raver till the day I die. That is a fact. And so it just kind of made sense to me. And now I feel like this is something I want to do for the rest of my life.
I love that. That's so fun. That's honestly the whole reason why I started this podcast. Was I wanted to show people that it's possible to follow your dreams, and it doesn't have to be so abstract. It's so simple. But I think the hardest part of it, which you're so clear on, which is so beautiful, is like, what is my dream? We're conditioned, like you said, like you're put in these boxes of like, okay, I'm doing fitness, so I have to go this route and I have to work in this space. And we feel this pressure to follow the laid out path that's there for us in our given field. And then when you really are able to like get down to it and get clarity on what are you passionate about, what lights you up, what brings you joy, and to be able to find a way to infuse it. And they also say the most successful entrepreneurs and the most successful businesses and the most successful products come from a founder who had a problem and solved their own problem with this solution that they're now selling, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, after Rave started coming back and that fall, that season, a few years before I decided to work with ravers, like I was still in a lot of unhealthy habits. So I feel like I had to become this different version of myself first. And so I always knew in my gut, I always wanted to work in the rave community, hence why I worked with ground control for so many years.
In what capacity did you work with ground control?
I was just working festival team. We just walk around the festival, check on people, make sure they're okay, get people to medical when they need help, answer questions. It really
Yeah.
depends on the festival. Some festivals we make more medical calls than others. And I always like to sprinkle a little bit of like, hey, here's some tips for next time so you don't have to go to the med tent. And I will say, a lot of times I see people going to Oasis or the med tent, they're dealing with symptoms of low blood sugar because they didn't eat the morning of, they're taking stimulants, they're crashing their blood sugar, or they're drinking and they barely ate, crashing their blood sugar. And so I've actually seen people where I'm talking to them, I'm like, if you get something to eat, you'll feel a lot better. And I've seen that happen a few times when I see people come to Oasis with some of those symptoms, like get some food in you, see if that's going to help you.
So, what would you say are some suggestions for people that are going to a festival beyond the workouts and things like that? Do you have kind of health tips or general things that you would say to people to do like before, during, and after?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, usually, preparing for the festival starts a few days before. You really want to make sure you're on top of drinking your water, especially if you're traveling. It's very easy to forget to drink water when you're traveling. And if you rave the next day, that dehydration from that previous day can follow you. I made it a point when we were driving down to Vegas for EDC. I was like, I don't care how many times I have to stop. I'm drinking and hitting my water goal because I do not want to be dehydrated at all during this trip.
Right.
You prioritize taking care of yourself and always make sure you eat a solid breakfast early on. And if you are worried about like, oh, I don't want to be bloated, make sure you just eat ASAP and stay moving. And
Mhm.
don't stress too much about like actually having food in your stomach. That was one of those toxic things that I practiced so much back in the day because I was like, I didn't want to eat in the morning because I was like, I'm going to wear this outfit and I don't want my stomach sticking out at all. So I'm just going to skip meals. And I know how common that is because a lot of us feel pressure to look a certain way in our outfits or to wear outfits that don't allow us to feel comfortable. Like, wear
Right.
what makes you comfortable and appeases your self expression. Don't feel like you have to wear something that an influencer wore because they looked confident in it. Like, just because they look confident in it doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable for you.
Correct. Correct. I feel like when I went from shifting to comfort over cute and figuring out like there's so many rave clothes that are cute and comfortable.
Yeah. I
Like so
love
many.
I love like high waisted and then mini skirts. I feel like mini skirts highlight my curves better because I have a tall pelvis, so I get hip dips, and so I
Yeah.
wear mini skirts, and it like rounds out my hips, and I'm like, that's very, it's a good
Right.
look, and that's like something that is my staple. Like I want to see more mini skirts on the market because like those ultra mini skirts,
Yeah.
chef's kiss. That's my
It's
style.
it's the best. I think I started that when I started going to Burning Man because it's like it's so hot and uncomfortable that you're just like, I just want to be comfortable. I want to be able to dance. I want to be able to move. And if at the end of the day, your goal, like I think people also have to remember the Instagram picture is one moment. The festival is the entire thing. If you
Mhm.
were uncomfortable the entire festival, but you got a cute pic, was it really worth it? You know?
I know so many people that will wear these outfits that they can't really dance in. They're like, "Oh, I just go to take pictures and I take it off." Especially a lot of influencers online. And no hate, like they're doing this to promote the products for the brands. Like it's part of their job. But I think a lot of people don't realize that they're not going to be wearing that the entire night. They want
Yeah,
to
you can't party
dance.
in that. It's like finding the stuff that makes you feel good in your body, that you don't feel self-conscious, that you feel comfortable, that you feel confident. Because at the end of the day, I've seen people of all shapes and sizes, and the thing that makes people look the best is them feeling confident and good in their body. If they feel good in what they're wearing and they feel confident, they look amazing every time, like every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I went to Sullivan King a few months ago, I was wearing my gym clothes there basically, and I was like, I feel freaking great.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes I don't even try. And then those are the nights where you're so magnetic because you're not putting on this thing. And there is something beautiful about this radical self expression of raves, and not to downplay that at all, but to the point of making the sustainable, feeling good, and utilizing it outside of the rave space. All of these lessons, I feel like raves and festivals and concerts are such a microcosm for life. And so if you're
Mhm.
able to understand these practices, like, yeah, drink water in general, like eat food and fuel your body in general, but do it at a rave because the rave is going to be like a heightened experience of life.
Yeah, 100%. It's very easy to not pay attention to our physical cues at the rave. There's so much stimulation, there's the music, there's all this like interaction. It's chaotic. So it's very easy to not pay attention to your body. Like if you are feeling drained, if you're feeling like your hunger signals, it can be very hard to pick up on those. So when you work on good nutrition habits in your day-to-day life, it's very easy to be more mindful about that when you're at the rave. Whereas a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who are used to skipping breakfast and not prioritizing, eating healthy, they don't know how to pick foods that feel good in their body. And by feel good, I mean like fuel them well.
Right,
Um, and then they don't know how to eat regularly. Like, oh, I usually eat like 3 times a day, usually like this
right,
long
right.
after I wake up, and, X, Y, and Z. And when you work out, you understand like what foods feel good in your body when you are doing a lot of physical activity. There's a lot of food at festivals that don't really sit well in digestion. And so then that can keep people from dancing. And so if you know how to pick foods from vendors that help you feel good, then you're going to dance more. You're going to have a better experience. You're going to recover faster. So you can start training and working hard for the next one.
Right, right. I always like the idea of how do you utilize these spaces to enhance your life so that you're not recovering for 2 weeks, so that you can just bounce right back and use these places. I like to think of them as expanders, right? They're expanders in all these different ways where you're inspired, you're lit up, there's music, there's dance, there's connection, there's community, there's all of these things that really can fuel into your life so that when you go back into the real world, you're able to spread that and share it rather than go into a deep, dark hole of like, ah.
Exactly. Exactly. It was a big difference when I started really prioritizing good nutrition, stretching more, and actually not trying to go on a no sleep bender. I felt like I had more fulfilling experiences. Like I felt less post rave depression, so to speak, where
Right.
you're like, oh, I just want to go back. That's the only place where it's like, I was happy. It's like you come back and you're able to integrate a lot of that energy into your day-to-day life. And so it keeps you more inspired for the next one. Like this isn't going to say like you're not going to reflect back on your videos and be like, oh, I missed that. That was such a good time. Like I still do that. But like I don't feel the whole like I missed out on any of the experience because I wasn't getting plastered. I wasn't high the whole time. I was getting decent sleep. I was getting good nutrition. And, we also have to be honest that like we're not going to get to experience everything at the festival. And when we accept that too, you feel more motivated for, coming back home and just waiting and being patient for the next experience because ultimately like
100%.
FOMO is the best way to destroy your own gratitude.
Oh man, yes, yes, I love that. I love that. The word that you said that really resonated with me is integration, right? I had that experience my first year. I went to Burning Man. A lot of people get really depressed after Burning Man specifically because it's just so like otherworldly, crazy experience. And then they come back and they're like, the real world sucks. I hate it here. And something that I had to learn is how do you integrate that experience? How do you take the magic of the rave? How do you take the magic of the experience and infuse it into your daily life and spread that? If you love the plur concept, you love meeting somebody and connecting with them and giving them a gift or giving them compliments or whatever, do that in life. And people who aren't in the community don't know. And then they go and they're like, what is this world? And it's like, the world can be like this if we all take these lessons and infuse it into our daily world. I would love to hear a little bit about your take on substances.
So I don't push sobriety, but I do want to push responsible and mindful use. I think that most substances can have, less detrimental effects on the community if there's more of a conversation about responsible use. Because a lot of what I notice is that, we have a lot of content that's about testing with fentanyl strips, using reagent kits, and it leaves it at that. And so a lot of people, and I know I used to have this mindset too when I first started raving, is like, as long as it tests clean and tests what it is, I can take it every other weekend. I can take it
Mhm.
multiple days in a row. And it's just like, when you're taking these substances that drain your serotonin and drain your dopamine all the time and increase stress on the body, then it's going to be harder for you to recover. And you get more of that post rave depression. And honestly, especially if you are using throughout the entire weekend, it feels like your experience was less authentic in a lot of ways. Feels like there's something that is forcing the experience rather than allowing you to experience the experience. And so I think that we need to be more vocal about, like, hey, you shouldn't be rolling every 2 weeks. Even once a month is pushing it, and if you're doing it multiple days in a weekend, that's not a good thing. um, we need to talk about the conversation of, like, quantity is just as important as the quality. And a lot of people that share these harm reduction kits and strips, that's where the conversation ends. And I understand, like, everybody's physiology is very different. People respond differently. Some people are hypersensitive, can bounce back faster, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, still, we need to have that conversation because there's too many people that are just way too casual about using things like MDMA or cocaine or ketamine on a regular basis every other
Mhm.
weekend. And then they wonder why they're lacking motivation to move forward in their life, why they're struggling to recover, why they come home and they're partying every weekend, taking things, and they have no energy to, like, finish their housework or take care
Right.
of their other responsibilities. It feels like their life literally just becomes all about work and party and nothing else that's going to help them feel fulfilled.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you mentioned harm reduction. Can you talk about what that is?
There's a lot of different layers to harm reduction. And I've actually had a few people not necessarily attack me, but try to discredit my view. Because I like to say health is an extension of harm reduction. People will be like, oh, harm reduction is literally just making sure people in the streets have clean needles, or harm reduction is literally just making sure it's clean. It's like harm reduction is also about the intention, the frequency. Is this having a negative impact on your life outside of the use?
Mhm.
And are you taking care of yourself while using, before using? Like, if you are taking these substances that drain your neurotransmitters and your protein intake is crap, your body's not going to get enough amino acids to replenish your dopamine, replenish your serotonin, support your GABA production. And those are all the really important neurotransmitters that help your mood regulation. So when you
Mhm.
take all this stuff that drains these neurotransmitters, you're not consuming the building blocks to rebuild. Then you're also not sleeping, increasing stress on the body, further affecting your hormone levels, because neurotransmitters are also technically hormones. Then it's going to impact your life in
Yeah.
a substantial way that you don't really realize until it's, like, made a massive impact on things that you usually would be interested in. And that's why, like, a lot of ravers, I feel like, I'm not trying to discredit depression. Depression's a real thing, but I think a lot of ravers are not helping themselves overcome it by engaging in all too frequent use, poor self care, and then they wonder, why they're stuck feeling this way.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh man. Yes. Yes. I'm like, this is the kind of stuff that, like, hearing you talk about just gets me so excited because I really do feel like there needs to be more conversations around this. I have a similar stance with you in terms of substances. I don't preach sobriety. I talk about intentional consumption, and it's all the same thing. I'm like, I always ask myself when I'm making decisions for myself, it's never a given if I'm going to do anything. And the question I ask is if I'm using, right? Using being an operative word to numb, suppress, avoid, or distract from an emotion, then that's a key signal that there's another method, right? If you had a hard day and you come home and your first thing is, let me grab a glass of wine, let me reach for that joint, I would say to reevaluate your relationship with that substance. When I go to a festival or a rave or a concert, am I going straight to the bar because I feel anxious and uncomfortable and I don't know what to do with myself? Or is this like an addition to? And this is why I love sober events, even though I'm not completely sober, because I think it's a really good practice for everybody to understand what your baseline is, to know I don't need anything in order to have a good time. And I think that when it comes to substances, and again, nothing wrong with substances, I think that given the right, time, place, setting, intentionality, they can be wonderful and enhancing. I'm a big fan of psychedelics, like not anti at all, but utilizing these substances with intentionality and not using it as a coping mechanism because you don't feel safe within yourself. Like,
Mhm.
I think that's a big, you're nodding along. Do you feel
Yeah.
that way as well? Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like another thing too is like people who use it because they're not taking care of themselves. Like, there's some stimulants where people will be like, oh, I just I'm not sleeping, so I'm gonna just keep taking this stuff. And so it's like, that will perpetuate the non-sleep cycle because if you're taking these stimulants, cocaine and DMA, and especially on like a daily basis at festivals, it can impact your sleep. So you have to like ask yourself, is it worth sacrificing your experience the next day? Are you in an environment where you can actually enjoy the experience? Like, I can think of, there's a lot of occasions where I will bring something with me and not even take it because
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm feeling good. I don't feel like I need this, or it's too crowded. And I'm like, I would feel a little bit overwhelmed. Or this one instance where I was at Base Canyon a few years back and there was a giant fire that was miles and miles away, but we had very thick smoke. Like the air was very dirty. And so I was planning on taking a little trip that day and I had it with me. And I was like, I know that if I take this, I'm going to stress out about the fact that like the air feels suffocating. So I ended up not, and I stayed sober that day and I had a freaking amazing time
Right.
that day. And that's not even just like an isolated incident. That happens quite often where I'm just like, I feel like I feel like I don't need this right now. I feel like this experience is what I want it to be. And then sometimes I'll be like, this is the experience I planned and it turns out great. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to rely on substances to navigate my energy. I can choose to navigate my energy how I want. And so over time, especially pairing that with taking care of my body, taking care of my health, not trying to go on a no sleep bender for the whole weekend. Like I can do one night without sleeping, but if it's like 2 days in a row, that really messes with the experience. But ever since I started really prioritizing, that self-care at the festival, substance use went down at least like 80% for the
Yeah,
most part.
yeah. And again, we're talking about raving and festivals, but a lot of my audience maybe isn't ravers. Maybe they don't go to festivals. Some of them do, some of them don't. But I'm like, all of this conversation can be applicable to just how you utilize substances in your social scene. Maybe you don't like MDMA and you're not doing that type of stuff, but you're drinking alcohol, you're smoking weed. It's all the same. At the end of the day, all of these substances, it's about your intentionality around them and how you're using them and why you're using them, and really coming back to that question of why, and is it because I don't feel safe? Is it because I'm avoiding something? Is it because I had a stressful day? Is it because I don't know what to do with myself? And just getting clarity on those things, I think, is such a game changer. And again, conversations that I don't think are being had enough in this space and outside.
Yeah. Or they don't know how to have fun without it.
Right, right. But again, I think for me, when I analyze that, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I can't have fun without drinking. Okay. Well, that's also like society tells us that. And we could get into the whole matrix of it all, of the consumerism of
The
them pushing,
marketing, the
of them
heavy
pushing,
marketing of alcohol.
right, of them pushing like you need alcohol in order to do this. And then also just reevaluating your own relationship with when you meet someone that doesn't drink. Not drinking doesn't mean that you're not fun. Take it or leave it, do what you want, do what makes you feel good. It's really just asking yourself those questions of why is going to a bar every single night and drinking so normal, but taking mushrooms is still taboo, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And plus, I honestly, arguably, I feel like alcohol is one of the, I mean, there's definitely worse ones out there. I'm not going to say that alcohol is the worst, but out of the most commonly used substances, I think alcohol is the most destructive because not
Totally.
only can it leads to honestly some of the worst decisions, it's also the after effects can last a little bit longer. It's a huge gut lining irritant. It can really throw off your gut microbiome. It can affect the way your body digests food. Plus, with women, it has the most impact on our menstrual health as well,
Hmm. And we don't
especially if
know.
you're taking birth control. It's, you have to be really careful with alcohol when you're taking birth control pills.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So basically, what alcohol can do is it can impact the way your body metabolizes estrogen or the synthetic estrogen from birth control. And what that can do is it can dramatically raise your estrogen levels and increase the risk of breast and endometrial cancer because your body cannot properly eliminate the metabolites from the estrogen. And so that leads to a lot of women to having heavy periods, worse cramping, can also lead to PCOS, especially if you are consuming alcoholic beverages with a lot of sugar. Beatbox. Sorry, they blocked me on Instagram, so I will.
What is beatbox?
Oh, they're probably the most popular drink in the festival scene today.
Oh,
They literally blocked me just for sharing a reel where I said that their drinks are 400 calories with over 25 grams of sugar added, and they didn't like that, so they blocked me.
that you told people what their product is?
I know. I literally, the reel was just like, it was like Grizz song where it's like, what's one thing that people should know? And I said, like, oh, beatboxes are 400 calories and this much sugar. And then they blocked me. And I was like, well, then, okay. And
Interesting.
their marketing campaign is so freaking aggressive.
In what sense? What's it like?
All the influencers like share their stuff. They'll take on anybody to be like a representative for them to promote their product. The marketing is super, super heavy and they promote like excess, especially. And that's something that I don't agree with. So, anyway, kind of going back to the effects that it has on our hormones, like if you have PCOS or insulin resistance or any sort of hormonal issue, you consume alcohol with a lot of sugar added, and that can further impact your menstrual hormone health, whether you're on birth
Mm.
control or not. It's the combo is not the best. That's why if I ever drink, I typically go for like a diet soda with like a shot or two, or I'll go for a seltzer. And sometimes I might bring in an opened water flavor. I use a brand called Stir, but it's like Mio or those like little electrolyte powders you can mix in.
Mhm.
And I will like flavor the seltzer with that and pour it into a water bottle. So I have the cap. I can slow down with the drinking. Because I think the biggest appeal with a certain alcohol beverage I was talking about is the fact that you can cap it. But like you can just make your own flavor and it'll be a lot relatively healthier. I'm not saying it's healthy.
Oh,
Alcohol's not
I
healthy.
never thought about that a lot of alcohol is like cans and it forces you to have to drink it because you want to put it down. So you just drink.
Or you don't want to like have somebody spike it, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, like you don't want to be holding something, so you're like, "Oh, I'll just drink it so that I don't have to deal with it."
yeah.
Interesting. I never even thought about that from like a logistical perspective. So,
I will stand there at the bar if I'm getting a drink, and whether it's a seltzer or if it's in a cup, I will stay there and fill up my water bottle. So I'm like, okay, it's not going to spill. I can take my time sipping on it,
right.
and if I wanted to flavor it, I can use my little flavor drops.
So smart. So smart. So interesting. So I'm curious, looping back to your business model, what does your business look like right now? Are you doing mostly online? Are you doing a combination of online and person? Are you doing this full time? Like, what is that? What's going on
So
there?
this is my full-time job. I only
Amazing.
do online. If you wear too many hats, it's very hard to grow a business if you are doing multiple things. And there was a point where I realized I had to stop working. I worked at a vitamin store. I had to quit that because I was starting to gain some steam. And then after some while, I had to quit doing in person to focus on my online clients. And so now I solely work online. This is my full time. I have anywhere between 40 to 50 girls on my one-on-one roster.
Wow.
And
Busy
then I
lady.
have 12 girls who just signed up for my Lost Lands program, and signups are still going. So we're going to see where that ends up because it launches on the 30th of June. So I'm really excited. And one of my favorite things is when I have a bunch of clients or participants going to the same festival as me, because I can pull some strings and hire a photographer and give them some professional photos so they can feel like they're being celebrated. They can feel, that they can memorialize their hard work that they put into themselves in the program. I wanted to give them something that they can look back on and help them feel special. So getting a professional photographer, a lot of people think, oh, that's only like for the influencers. But I'm like, no, you can too. At EDC, it took me like a month and a half to find somebody that could commit to coming through for us.
That's
But
so cool.
after talking to a bunch of people, I was able to find somebody. We got them for our EDC meetup. Last year, we had someone for our Lost Lands meetup. They're going to be here for our Lost Lands meetup this year too. So I'm super excited for that. And it's so funny because when I went to the second level of my mentorship program, I have a business coach and
Mhm.
mentors. So I went into the next level. And so they had us do practice where like we want to visualize our business in 5 years, where we're at in 5 years. And I was like, I want to have big meetups at festivals to make these girls feel special, where we can have photo shoots and they can celebrate themselves because they invest in themselves. So I'm invested in them. I put a lot of energy and care into my girls. And when they show up for themselves, because they still have to show up, I want to celebrate them because I
Right.
know making changes is never easy. And sometimes we can doubt ourselves, but when we see that pay off on the dance floor and we let ourselves feel special, it can continue that motivation and inspiration afterwards. So that's kind of it. This month actually hit quite a few milestones in Brave.
Yeah.
So I'm
What what
really
what what
excited.
what are the milestones if you want to share them?
Well, I mean, kind of where we're at with our clientele. I've always wanted to work towards the 50 mark. Like when I started and I was like at 10 clients, 15, I was like, I want to be able to work with more. And so kind of hitting that number was something that I've worked for the last, so I've been online coaching since 2020, so like 5 years.
Hmm.
And then just like some revenue goals in the back end. And also like my revenue doesn't necessarily mean that's my take home. Like my
Right.
back end expenses are, not necessarily cheap. I invest in my mentors. I have a CPA, and in the next 3 months, I'm going to have my first hire. So I am nervous about that.
Very
I'm like,
exciting. What's the role?
so they are going to be more of like an assistant.
Great.
The specifics are still in progress. I've reached out to my mentors and they're going to guide me on like what that first hire is going to be. They told me that like, you're getting to a point where you're doing a lot of the things. And so if you want to continue to grow, you need to have that support in the back end. So I already know who she's going to be. So unfortunately, that position is potentially filled.
Great.
My biggest goal for my business is I want to hire other coaches that can relate to different types of ravers. I want to hire a coach that is a mother so that she can relate to other ravers who are also moms. I want to hire people who are really into different genres. Like I'm a huge bass head. I love bass and hard style. Like I love the intense stuff
Yeah.
a lot, but I also want to get somebody who's into the trance and the techno side. They're typically going to be a little bit older than I am, so they can relate to people who are more into like
Right.
that age range. So like I want to have a variety of coaches that can relate to different types of women in the rave community. Like, I'm 28. I'm going to be turning 29 next month, so I relate a lot to like the mid to late 20, early 30
Yeah.
audience. But I would love to get somebody who's like in their 40s or even inching towards their 50s that
Yeah.
one, they are living here for a good time and a long time,
Right. Right.
and they're going to relate more. So, like, I have so many ideas for Brave. And so it's just,
It's so cool. It's so cool. Like, congratulations, just from somebody who's on the receiving end of it. And I am pretty sure I just found you through the algorithms of stuff. And I don't see anybody else really doing this the way that you're doing this. I think that this is so needed and so niche, but like perfectly niche.
yeah.
And fun. This is what you love. It's what clearly lights you up. It's what brings you joy. Who better to support in this space than somebody who's so passionate about it, right?
Yeah, and that's like my sole focus. I do see some people ever since I started and my content started going off. Like it was February of last year that I had like two reels that went viral, and it kind of got my name out there, got my content out there. And so ever since then, I've noticed that there were a few people who started sharing the same message, and then, some people who decided to like go into coaching ravers. Like they decided to, I don't know whether that's they saw what I was doing. They're like, I want to do what you're doing now. Or if they were already kind of thinking of doing that. There are a few people that I know that like just jumped in and started doing it. And then some people who were established for a little bit before I was. But
Yeah.
I know that like for me, like that's my key focus. And so I put a lot into just being consistent with my content and taking messy action. Sometimes my content isn't the most aesthetic, it's not the most professional quality, but I'm getting my message out there, and that's the
Yeah.
important part.
Yeah. So you touched on a couple things that I'd love to dive into a little bit. I'd love to talk about your mentorship because I think that's so important from almost every single successful entrepreneur I've ever spoken to has some sort of coach, mentor, somebody who knows a little bit more than them that's kind of guiding them along the way. And then I'd also love to talk about the second job, which is, you have the job and then you have now social media as its whole own beast and entity.
Yeah, it really is. So I've been working with my mentors since late 2021, towards the end of my I'm not taking good care of myself streak. And I when I signed up with them, I've been with them ever since. So crazy to think I've been with them for about 4 years.
And is it
Um,
one-on-one mentorship or are you in the program?
it's a program. So basically, there's a team of coaches that help support us. And so there's a course that we take on their website, and it teaches us about marketing, content creation, back end stuff like agreements and building your audience, engaging with your audience, and refining like what kind of business, what is your message, what is your purpose, and there's so much to it. Like it's
Yeah.
hard to explain everything that they help with, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. And it was definitely hard, and it still is hard sometimes when there's new coaches that come into the network, and like they just speed up, and they're like, next thing you know, they are in the third level of the program and you're
Right.
still stuck at the first level, and you're just like, am I even meant for this? I can't tell you how many times I had to fight that whole like, they're making so much progress in a short period of time and I'm still struggling. This doesn't feel fair. Like, and I know for a fact that a lot of my clients feel that way too. When you compare yourself to other people in the same program, it can be really tough because you're in the same program. You would expect to get the same fast results. But the thing is, everybody has a different background.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a different purpose. Everyone has a different life. So it's like me comparing myself to somebody who jumps into this program where I was personal training for 3 years beforehand. They were personal training for 15. I studied science in school. They studied business. And so, like,
Right.
they know the business more than I do. And
Right.
that's also like one of the things that kind of sucks about social media coaches is there's a lot of coaches that are really great at marketing, but they are not good at coaching. They're good at putting out the best content, but they are not going to be good at helping you.
Right.
And so they
Because it's
can
two
like,
different jobs. It's two totally
exactly.
different things.
Yeah, I feel like I had to like, get a business degree in 4 years, but not really a degree, just learning all of this stuff. And of course, marketing, social media changes a lot of that. And so my mentors are really great at staying up to date on like what are the algorithm changes, what are the trends, what are like some of the things we need to know, how we can get out our head. Like the way that views and likes are curated now is different than it was a while ago. And so
Right.
when people start to freak out, like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting all this engagement, it's like, well, actually, across the board, things are like this, but you're still developing that connection with your niche, right?
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful. And it's just great to have the support of the coaches in the program to reach out to and like, hey, I'm struggling here, or like, hey, am I doing this right? Like, I had a reel for my law science program on TikTok just like blow up. And I was not expecting that. I had like 600 comments. I'm like, how am I going to message every single person who's interested in this
Right.
program this way? That's not going to make sense. And so they gave me an idea of how I could manage it. They're like, what you're going to do, because I can't send links on TikTok to sign up for the program. I was guiding them to my Instagram and my broadcast channel where I have all the information for the
Right.
program there. And so that helped a lot. And it's like having them as a resource when you're in like that, oh shit, I don't know what to do moment, it helps to give you that reassurance and gives you that focus. Like, okay,
Totally.
this is what I'm doing versus being like, what the fuck should I do? Right? Like similar to a fitness journey. When people start with me, they're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? How do I go to the gym and build and get strong? Where do I start now? Whether it's
Right.
somebody who's a beginner or somebody who's taken time off, but they have experience, they're like, I don't know where to start. I used to do this, but it's been a long time. Where do
Yeah.
I begin? So having mentors, having coaches helps relieve some of the guesswork and still like understand like when you work with a coach, it's always going to be like if you're working one-on-one with a coach, especially like they're learning about you and you're learning about them too.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be that learning curve, but at least it makes that learning curve less messy.
Yeah, and it's going to help you get there faster, right? I
Exactly.
think that there's a lot of stigma around like the coaching industry. I know when I first stepped into this world and I had a lot of friends that were coaches and I was like, I don't know, seems a little sus. There's like that skepticism. And then you really think about it. And I think honestly comparing it to a fitness coach or a nutrition coach is the best way to understand coaching on scale, because you're like, yeah, like you could just eat healthy. You could just go to the gym and work out, but it's hard, and it's easier to have somebody who's done it, who's figured it out for you, and who's going to hold your hand through the process. Even with all the coaching stuff, it's like, yeah, like a lot of the stuff you maybe could Google, you maybe could look up, you maybe could figure it out, but you're paying for the streamlined support of, I don't need to spend days and weeks and hours searching all this stuff. I can just go to a reliable source that knows what's going on, that can actually support me to getting to where I'm desiring to be faster.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to touch on one other thing too there. Like somebody who's done it before, yes, you want to hire somebody who's walked the walk, but ultimately too, like I see a lot of people who jump into coaching who have no credentials, no education, and while it might have worked for them, like they won't know what needs to be adapted if somebody else has different circumstances. And I think that's like something that I noticed with some people who join that mentorship program, or even some people that I know online who decide to become coaches, and they don't have any credentials, they don't have any education. And so it's a little bit frustrating in that aspect because
Well, it's not
you know
regulated. The space is not regulated at all.
it's
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
anybody can call. I don't call myself a nutritionist. I don't call myself a nutritionist, even though I studied nutrition in school. I have a nutrition certification.
Right.
I know a lot about nutrition, but I do not call myself a nutritionist because that term, there's no regulation behind it. And dietitian, like if somebody's a dietitian, they have studied it. They have studied it to an extensive degree. They have their RDA, like they have that credential.
Right.
And even though I have like a nutrition credential, and I think nutrition is freaking fascinating, I feel like I know a really good amount of it. I don't call myself a nutritionist, and I cannot call myself a dietitian.
Right.
You can't prescribe meal plans as a coach. You can give samples, you can give inspiration, but you can't like you're not allowed to prescribe. And so there's a
That's
lot of coaches out there.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fine line that you have to walk. Like that's something that I am very clear about with anybody that signs on in my agreement terms. Like I mentioned, like this is everything that, that your coach is qualified for. This is what we'll provide, but under no terms, like we're not here to diagnose, we're not here to cure, we are not here to prescribe, we are here to guide. So that's an important thing. And there's too many coaches and trainers out there that do that, like kind of, you know, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Like they will take their qualification as being higher up than it is.
Right.
And their qualification may just be like, I got in shape, so can you, or I can do this, so can you. And like, yes, that's true. But also at the same time, like, do you have the formal education to understand it?
Right. And also, just because you could do it doesn't mean you can teach it.
Exactly. Exactly. Like similar, like holding people accountable and like the hardest part of being a coach is actually calling out people when they are self-sabotaging because especially in the rave community, we're all about like kindness, plur. And so that's something that I struggled with a lot too, like early on in coaching is like calling people out because I know they're capable. I know what they want to work towards. And that's something that like, in the last year I've gotten way better about. Like I will call my clients out with love. Like we found like that middle ground and like they shift their behavior. But like it can be very difficult in the rave community to call people out and it just keeps them stuck.
Yeah.
And so that's why I try to like talk about that in my content too, like hey, if this you're self-sabotaging this way, here's what you should do to address that self-sabotage, where there's like too many people where it's like especially in the rave space like almost coddling the bad behaviors and bad habits that are holding people back because
Right.
they're afraid of acknowledging that they are the ones hurting themselves and don't even realize it, and that can lead to a lot of people getting triggered, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I absolutely love all of this. Well, I appreciate your perspective. I love the work that you're doing so much. I think it is so important. I'm so excited to continue to witness your business grow and hearing the behind the scenes of how you're, coming at this with so much thoughtfulness and scaling it is just so incredible. I want to give you the opportunity. I know you mentioned that you have a program that's closing out soon to just share how people can connect with you, anything upcoming. This is your moment to share that for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I am going to be at Shambhala next month and I'm going to be leading workshops. So I have
Cool.
4 workshops I'm going to be leading at Shambhala. I can't remember the times off the top of my head, but we are in the app. So if you want to come pop into my workshop, please do so. They're going to be a good time. I forget what the order is, but we have a lot of wellness focused workshop. We have a prehab mobility focused workshop. We have a mindfulness workshop. So
Very
I
cool.
recommend coming to check those out. It's going to be a good time. And then if you want to find me, my Instagram and TikTok is Dana F Fit. There's 2 F's, not just one. I'm also on Facebook as well. And then for my Lost Lens program, so signups do end Sunday. So I imagine that by the time most viewers are going to see this, the sign up is going to be closed. But if you are interested in one on one coaching, I have the application link in my bio on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook as well. I also have a support group on Facebook that I'm working on getting back into momentum. So the link for that is also going to be in my Instagram as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dana. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful wisdom and everything that you're doing here. You guys, please, if you haven't already done so, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, reach out to me, reach out to Dana. If anything in this conversation sparks some curiosity, yeah, we're real people, so we'd love to hear from you. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.